I'm Dimitrz and you're watching A News. Here are the headlines. NATO foreign ministers kick off two-day summit in Brussels. Ukraine and the Middle East high on the agenda. Second day of UN's COP16 conference in Riyadh. Talks on addressing global land degradation, drought and desertification continue. French government facing a no-confidence vote after PM bypasses parliament to pass the social security budget. Thank you for tuning in. NATO foreign ministers started their two-day talks in Brussels on the war in Ukraine and the Middle East. Ahead of the meetings, NATO chief Mark Rutte called for increased military aid to strengthen Ukraine's position in potential negotiations with Moscow, stressing that more support would give Kyiv a stronger hand at the table. Ukraine's foreign minister Andriy Sybiha urged allies for greater solidarity, emphasizing the need to maintain Ukraine's energy production amid escalating challenges. Ukraine also seeks additional air defense systems from NATO countries.
Ukraine is entering another crucial winter, and Russia's aggression shows no sign of abating. Just the opposite. Putin is ramping up his rhetoric and reckless actions. He is using Ukraine as a testing ground for experimental missiles and is deploying North Korean soldiers in this illegal war. But we will all need to do more, especially now. The stronger our military support to Ukraine is now, the stronger their hand will be at the negotiating table. And the sooner we can end Russian aggression once and for all in Ukraine.
And we are speaking about urgent supply of at least 20 additional systems, type Hawks, NASAMS or IRIS-T. And it will help us to avoid blackout. And we understand that Russians, they try to deprive us to produce energy. That's why we need also more support and more solidarity in preventing of achieving of this situation.
In the meantime, Ukraine reported new power outages caused by overnight Russian strikes targeting energy infrastructure in the country's western Ternopil and Rivne regions. Ukraine's Air Force claims to have shot down 22 of the 28 launched drones. Latest attack on Ukraine's energy grid follows major strikes Russia launched in November, leading to widespread power cuts. Local officials are advising residents to stock up on water and charge their phones as repairs to the electricity grid continue. Moscow has not yet commented. Tensions are rising in the Middle East as Israel and Hezbollah accuse each other of violating the ceasefire agreement in southern Lebanon.
The Israeli army carried out strikes on Hezbollah targets, including military vehicles and personnel, over the past 2 days. Lebanon's national news agency reported the death of a Lebanese security officer in the Israeli attacks on Monday. Meanwhile, Hezbollah confirms it launched mortars at an Israeli military base near the border, a move the group called a warning after Israel's continued violations of the ceasefire. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu condemned Hezbollah's actions, calling them a serious violation, pledging a forceful response. He reiterated Israel's commitment to enforcing the ceasefire and dealing with any breaches decisively. The ceasefire, which has been in effect since the 27th of November, was meant to end more than a year of fighting. However, Lebanon accuses Israel of more than 50 violations, raising doubts about the sustainability of the ceasefire agreement. Israel defends its actions, asserting they target Hezbollah militants who are undermining the ceasefire.
Rebels in Syria claim to have seized the Aleppo International Airport, dealing a blow to the government forces. The war in Syria intensified in the last week as anti-government fighters pushed to solidify their positions in various parts of the country. Earlier, the government's forces lost control over Tel Rifat, adjacent to Aleppo. Meanwhile, United Nations Secretary General's office says that the UN chief calls for an immediate end to hostilities in northwestern Syria and a return to a UN-brokered political process.
Condemn.
Over in Vietnam, a court upheld the death sentence for Trong My Lan, a real estate tycoon in a $12 billion fraud case. Even though the court in Ho Chi Minh City rejected her appeal, there is a possibility the sentence could be commuted to life in jail if Lan is able to return 3/4 of the embezzled money.
The chairwoman of a major real estate firm in Vietnam was convicted in April for embezzling $12.5 billion, nearly 3% of Vietnam's 2022 GDP. Prosecutors called her crimes unprecedented, saying they caused severe damage to the economy and shook investor confidence. The court in Ho Chi Minh City ruled that her death sentence would stand unless she can repay 3/4 of the stolen money. Lan is one of the most high-profile figures caught in Vietnam's anti-corruption drive, known as Blazing Furnace. Despite her lawyers arguing for leniency due to her admission of guilt and partial repayments, the court found these efforts insufficient. She still has the option to request a legal review, but for now, her sentence remains unchanged.
The death toll from last week's landslide in eastern Uganda has risen to 28. Among those recovered were the bodies of 2 3-year-old boys, according to the officials. Dozens remain missing after the landslide buried several villages on the slopes of Mount Elgon, about 300 kilometers east of Kampala. The country has been affected by severe weather since October, causing widespread flooding and mudslides. Despite efforts to relocate residents from disaster-prone areas, many remain due to poverty and lack of resources. In India, the death toll has risen after Cyclone Fengal made landfall in the south of the country on Saturday. 12 people were killed in Tamil Nadu. Northern Kerala was placed on red alert after some 50 centimeters of rain fell in 24 hours, causing major floods and landslides. Thousands of homes have been damaged and more than 200,000 hectares of farmland remain submerged. In Saudi Arabia's Riyadh, the COP16 conference started off with a strong need of political and financial commitments to combat the growing threat of drought. On the second day of the summit, ministerial discussions are focusing on unlocking public and private finance to address the $10 trillion annual cost of land degradation. A news correspondent, Narchichak Jahangirli, brings the latest from the ground.
In the second day of COP16 at Riyadh, the morale is very high as we already hear some promising numbers from the authorities. Besides the plenary meeting, a lot of side events and official bilateral meetings are taking place behind the closed doors. Of course, the land restoration, desertification and drought resilience are the center of this land conference at Saudi Arabia. Yesterday was quite fruitful in terms of negotiations as the Minister of Environment, Water and Agriculture of Saudi Arabia, also President of COP16, Abdul Rahman Al Fadhi, announced new initiative by the kingdom, and it is a Global Drought Resilience Partnership Initiative. Abdul Rahman Al Fadhi announced $150 million support by the Saudi Arabia to this initiative, and he called upon the governments to support and pledge to the project. Also, it is estimated that this initiative will cover up to 80 countries which suffers from land degradation. But also we can hear some announcements and pledges from the other developed countries. For example, EU is very eager. The Commissioner of EU on Environment and Water Resilience, Jessica Roswell, which is newly appointed to this past, she announced about the contribution of the EU to drought resilience and land degradation talks. She said that the organization is committed to support all the initiatives regarding these negotiations here at Riyadh. Also today, the second day of COP16, one water summit is going to take place, and it is very promising summit indeed, and we expect a lot of pledges, contributions and announcements from this summit. But also COP16 Riyadh is going to announce international drought resilience platform, which will be powered by AI data, and this is going to be the first of its kind. The platform going to provide a single portal from which managers and experts can analyze and visualize all the data regarding drought resilience, and they may come with the important solutions. The conference is still going on, and the theme is Our Land, Our Future, so we are really hopeful, and these are all the information from now.
That was our Narchichak Jahangirli reporting on the latest from the COP16 in Riyadh. Still at the conference, Azerbaijan has been elected as the chair of the Central and Eastern Europe Regional Group for a 2-year term within the framework of the conference. Besides Azerbaijan, the group includes 15 countries from Eastern and Central Europe. Within this group, priority areas have been identified, including strengthening regional activities, enhancing knowledge, ecological agriculture, and others. Azerbaijan was made a member of the COP16 Bureau as well. The Bureau, representing 12 regions, oversees the implementation of COP decisions and organizes the work for future COP meetings. Over in France, the government is on the verge of collapse after Prime Minister Michel Barnier bypassed the parliament to pass the social security budget. As a no-confidence vote looks likely tomorrow, far-right party French Patriots also called for a protest against the president, Emmanuel Macron, this weekend.
Prime Minister Michel Barnier invoked Article 49.3 to pass the 2025 social security budget without a parliamentary vote, sparking no-confidence motions from both the far-right National Rally and the left-wing New Popular Front. The budget aims to reduce France's deficit by slashing 40 billion euros in spending and 20 billion euros in tax increases. However, he tried to push it through without the support of the other parties. National Rally lawmakers and the left combined have enough votes to topple Barnier, and leader Marine Le Pen has confirmed her party would vote for the left-wing coalition's no-confidence bill on top of their own bill. If the no-confidence vote does indeed go through on Wednesday, Barnier would have to tender his resignation. But President Emmanuel Macron may ask him and his government to stay on in a caretaker role while he seeks a new prime minister. This would mark only the second time a French government has been ousted since 1958 and the first since 1962. The country's political future remains uncertain, with potential outcomes including the formation of a new government or the establishment of a technocratic interim leadership.
Staying in France, taxi drivers in Lyon mounted a protest over a proposed agreement negotiated with the health service on the transport of sedentary patients, causing serious traffic disruption. The protest came as the government is looking at several changes to healthcare reimbursement rules to help reduce the public deficit. Taxi drivers who are protesting changes to the health transportation tariff have said their actions may continue throughout the week. US President Joe Biden is set to visit the Museum of Slavery in Angola after meeting with the country's President João Lourenço on the second day of his 3-day visit to the sub-Saharan country, a first by a sitting US president. Biden is expected to give a speech addressing America's enslavement history. His visit to Angola is focused largely on the Lobito Corridor railway redevelopment in Zambia, Congo, and Angola, for which the U.S. committed $3 billion. The railway was previously renovated by the Chinese government in a rail for oil deal worth $2 billion. The railway is meant to connect the cobalt, lithium and copper mines in Congo and Zambia to the Angolan port of Lobito in the Atlantic Ocean. Once completed, the corridor will help transport minerals used in batteries for electric vehicles, electronic devices and clean energy technologies to Europe and the US. Once a key transit center for the slave trade on the western coast of Africa, the island of Gorée now stands as a symbol of freedom. Its vibrant streets and lush landscapes conceal a dark and conflicted history.
The island of Gorée, just off the coast of Senegal, looks like a paradise with its lush landscapes touched by the deep blue of the Atlantic. But beneath its beauty lies a dark history of slavery that is impossible to forget. Today, it stands not only as the reminder of that history, but as a symbol of fight for freedom. Once a key transit point in the transatlantic slave trade, Gorée was occupied by Portugal, the Netherlands, Britain and France over the centuries. Statistics show that at least 20 million men, women and children passed through its shores, with 5 million dying on these islands. The island became a gateway where millions were transported to forced labor and suffering.
But if you try to compare all West African coasts, you can see from Gorée we had the coast more closer to America. And the second reason, as an island, when they brought captives, they couldn't escape. Any European nations based here used to build up a kind of fortification. It was the French one, yeah. And they have all this to defend the island. It was so strategical because from Gorée, that must help them to make a control all along of the West African coast.
Today, Gorée stands as a powerful symbol of the fight for freedom. Each year, on December 2nd, the world reflects on this history on the International Day for the Abolition of Slavery.
Hundreds of Catholic pilgrims climbed Guatemala's Volcán de Agua. They returned the restored Christ of the Heights statue to its chapel in the volcano's crater, continuing a tradition of seeking blessings.
The pilgrims, predominantly from nearby communities at the volcano's base, began their journey early in the morning, carrying the statue of Jesus on their shoulders up the steep slopes. Volunteers from the community took turns bearing the figure, symbolising their gratitude for the blessings they believe they've received.
This is a privilege for us. It's a great blessing for Santa Maria de Jesus, our community. We are here. All of us are faithful devotees, eager to be here and receive the blessing of the Christ of the Heights.
He has performed miracles for me. This Christ has done for me so many miracles. That's why I become with devotion, with love, to bring him back to his chapel.
The annual pilgrimage tradition has been in place for nearly 5 decades. It attracts locals seeking divine intervention for rain, abundant harvests and help with personal struggles. The statue, which had been temporarily removed for restoration in July due to its deteriorating condition, was finally returned to its sacred site.
Over in Turkey, excavations at an amphitheater site in an ancient city in the northwest of the country uncovered 3 Roman-era artifacts.
Excavation work have been ongoing during the last 5 years at the ancient city of Prusias ad Hibium in northwest Turkey. History can be traced back to the 3rd century BC, despite the area being significantly affected by previous earthquakes and restorations. As well as a head statue of Medusa and a bust believed to be a theatre patron and a Byzantine-era water reservoir, archaeologists have also uncovered a Roman-era clay theatre ticket. The local mayor says the artefacts have been found in pristine condition.
Approximately 80% of the theater area has been uncovered. We have discovered highly significant historical artifacts, all found intact, which hold immense importance both locally and nationally. The entire area is a candidate to become an archaeological site. Beneath this settlement lies a Roman city, as confirmed by experts. The artifacts we have encountered suggest findings that could even reshape historical narratives.
Vardır. Bunun tespitini
The mayor says there are plans in the future to restore the ancient theatre into a 10,000-seated cultural and arts centre.
That's all we have for now. Thank you for tuning in and keep watching A News.